You're afraid of showing up on social media. So you're either going to piss your pants or you're going to piss your pants and do it anyway. But either way, you're going to piss your pants. You're afraid, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Artful Dollar Podcast. It's me, Ryan, tattooer, financial coach, seeker, explorer, curious human being, student of the world, and I am here with someone that lights me the fuck up, Reese Hilburn. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's just always a joy and a pleasure to be in your presence.
I love you. You're so fun. Stop gassing me up. Stop, stop doing all those things. You're going to make my head blow the fuck up. But no, I love being here with you. It's funny. I always talk about you a lot in my spaces to my community and stuff.
As do I. I talk about you a lot.
I feel it. I feel like my ears are burning and ringing every time you do. But it's always just because it's like we have had very similar journeys in moving from tattoo artist to tattoo mentor, coach, and educator, and, spiritual entrepreneur. We very much are very in tune in that level. And so you and I have always ebbed and flowed around each other until the moment where we finally got to just hang out, which was last year. I think it was first you did something for me. I asked you on the podcast or something of that nature. I don't know what happened, but somehow
yeah.
We met, and then now it's I'm oh yeah, I have my BFF. His name is Ryan. He teaches.
Yeah.
And I
really do. I consider you a friend. I'm going to be in San Diego next week, so we get to hang. I'm stoked.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just been such a blast to see your journey and see how everything's been moving and shaken for you, and how everything. Honestly, I love this industry, and I love how this industry is moving, that mentorship, that education, that really understanding of the importance of investment, not only just of your time, of your money, but time and energy. And so I think it's something what you're doing is really creating a lot of big waves in the industry. And I hear your name often from people that I wouldn't even expect to know you. And I'm just I see what's happening. I see the moves he's making. And I love watching it. And I'm so happy to be a part of your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking a little bit about things that we wanted to maybe discuss, but ultimately, I'm down for the open flow. But a few things that you were just saying that ringing these topics, these ideas that one is, you're hearing things, people saying Ryan this or that, right? Mm-hmm. And I hear the same thing, but that isn't because of anything that I'm doing right now. I see that as being the result of the years of consistent showing up over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I think for a long time, especially early on in coaching and diving more into content and creation, there's just this bummer expectation. You're just I just made this post or this reel, or this is really important to me. I think this is a great topic. Everyone needs to know about this and love this as much as I know and love this. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. And it flops. And then you post another thing, and then it flops. And then you post something that you didn't even think about. It's like that piece on the flash sheet that you just threw in there to fill up the corner of the flash sheet, and that's the piece that sells. It's the same thing with content,
Yes.
It's the piece that you just kind of stitched together randomly because you didn't give a fuck, and then everyone fucking likes that or hates it or both, And so we were talking about showing up on social media and the fear around that. And that is something I faced a lot of, and I still do. And so I think that's a cool topic. The other thing that you mentioned that we could maybe circle back to in some way is the fact that we are now both doing something outside of tattooing. It's inside of tattooing, but it's also outside. It's, I don't make a living anymore as a tattoo artist, which is crazy to me.
Crazy. Yeah.
And there's this idea that I'm a tattooer and I'm going to and have to tattoo forever. And there's life outside of tattooing.
I agree.
I don't know if anyone knows that, but there is. So that's just another interesting topic that we might touch on at some point.
Well, let's see. Something that just came up for me that was very alive and potent. I might as well just say it because that's what the universe wants. That's how we channel through things and download things. And it's actually on the second topic of knowing that we hold this identity of tattooer that we have to do this all the time, when really the tattooing aspect is just like an extension of our hearts, of who we are. And this will circle back to visibility as well. But when we think about it in the way that tattooing is not who I am, it's just like an arm. It's just like my arm or a leg. It's just a part of me that I know how to do. It's a skill I've learned. It's not something that I am. We actually get to unearth all the parts of us that we are. And when we do that, we start to realize there are other multifaceted ways for us to be creative and really live out our purpose on this planet. You made the incredibly brave moves to do that. You were like, I am very passionate about tattooing. I'm also very passionate about this other thing, finance, and helping people make money, save money, grow their money, all the things. And so it's just like, how do I, create, and we created this bridge, you and I, where it's like, I absolutely love tattooing, but I also absolutely love helping people build magnetic brands in the tattoo industry. Because I truly believe that it's not the tattooing that really calls people in. We talk about relationships a lot when it comes to Instagram or social media, or even just in the tattooing world, where it used to be without the social media, where it's like, you met someone at a bar, you created a relationship, they came in, you had a good time, they come back. And that's it's the simplest format that we can utilize, that we do on social media, but we find it so hard to do because there's so many people on social media open to having an opinion about what it is you're doing and who it is that you are. And so what we do as tattooers, we create Instagram, and we think of it from an only tattooer lens. I identify as tattoo artist. And so Instagram is a portfolio. But then when you got brave and you were like, I am actually an entrepreneur. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I'm a spiritual creative entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself. But this offers you a multifaceted of ways of sharing your creativity. And it also opens up so many doors on the way that you're like, wow, I'm not just this one thing. This is a part of who I am. I'm also a content creator. I'm also this, but then there's so much more intrinsic stuff. And that's why we go on these shamanic healing journeys to really unearth that, because we get to the tattoo artist point, we get successful in that in the way that we see success, and we're like, well, that's not hitting just right. So what else? So then we do something else, and then we start to serve, and we start to realize that our purpose is in serving and helping others and giving back. But we're also like, well, I'm not just the finance guy. I'm not just Ryan. And we start to really go through this existential crisis thing. And so what happens is that is so overwhelming that when tattoo artists are like, I don't even want to look at myself as an entrepreneur. I want to stay as the tattoo artist so that I can stand behind my art, and people should just, love my art and want me for my art, and that's it. And that's very much one part of it. But when we start to unearth and start to realize who we are, we get to show up in that way. We actually create more meaningful relationships on and offline. And then that's what creates this beautiful visibility around a brand, so that if you do decide to go outside the tattooing, because I know a lot of people are feeling that they want to be more helpful, they want to serve, they want to impact more people, and of course we want to be able to impact our income, impact our families' lives, impact our freedom. And that way it's like, well, I can't just do this one thing. How can I be a tattoo artist and be something else at the same time? Well, it's like, well, you actually have to open yourself up to those possibilities of thinking outside the box. So for me, it's like,
yeah, and it was scary.
Yeah, it's fucking scary every single day. It's not just yesterday. We get good at it, but it's over time, over the years, you're like, I'm trying to impact even more. And as social media changes, we shift with it, because as entrepreneurs and business owners, we understand that nothing's ever going to stay the same, and that we don't have to get mad at it. We're just like, all right, how do we move with this? But moving with it also means showing up in ways that could potentially be like, wow, this is deeper than I wanted to go. But now I'm like, am I willing to say this out loud? This is a sticky point. And I truly believe that's why social media is such an advocate and an avenue for your healing journey. I think entrepreneurship and social media is it's like, oh, you want to unearth some wounds? You got some triggers, bitch. Oh, you're jealous? You just got caught.
In shamanism.
Yeah.
In shamanism, they say the poison is the medicine. The medicine is the poison.
Yeah.
And social media can absolutely be a poison, but it's not only a poison. Mm-hmm. And it is how you approach it. And I 100% have felt social media being a poison in my life. 100%. And it has been a channel, a bridge to find a level of freedom around self-expression like I've never known. Like I've never been able to experience. A freedom, a play, like a place to show up and play and have fun and experiment and see what happens. And just like when you were a kid and you just like mixed like everything underneath the sink. I don't know if you did this. Like I'd get under the sink, get the soap and whatever. I put oregano. I would just mix like everything I could find in my mom's kitchen in a pot just to see what it would do. Just like a child, just experimenting and having fun. I get to do that with social media, and it's a whole other healing experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And business too. I view business as like the crucible that burns away everything that is not authentically who I am, because that stuff can't survive as I'm building the business that I really want. All those parts of me that didn't serve me burn away, and it's painful. Oh my God, is it painful?
Oh yeah.
But it's juicy and rewarding at the same time, you know?
It's funny because unless you've been on like a really, like if you're on the spiritual healing journey, it's like you start to realize the words that you utilize with moving through hard things. And it's no longer like tough and like it is, but it's like there is this essence of sensuality in it in a way, because we're tapped into all parts of ourselves. And that's like the biggest part of it, is that the reason why it's so hard to show up online is because there are parts of our psyches, of our minds, of ourselves inside our bodies that we reject. And we've rejected for so long because maybe we've experienced rejection. So we've experienced rejection. So that's one side of rejection. And then we're rejecting ourselves that experience that rejection. So now it's double rejection. And so it's like there is this moment where you get to make the choice of like, am I going to allow others to reject me, or am I not going to reject myself? So in turn, nobody can reject me. And that's kind of how I've moved through a lot of my own shames and my own parts of like limiting beliefs that hold me back from playing bigger than I think I could. And it really unearths a lot of your like potential and capabilities when you start to go on that journey, because it's like, wow, like I'm way more capable than I thought. I have limitless potential when I tap into the wisdom that is inside of me. And if I can just move through these, hard, crunchy, sticky situations and learn how to do it with ease and know how to create resiliency in my body and safety in my body to know I've got my own motherfucking back, it's like, yeah, then that's a commitment to a level of like who you desire to be versus what is it I want out of this thing. And that's why social media gets to be like, oh, it's not how can I get more or what can I get from it? It's like, who am I committed to being in this situation as I'm moving through something that's really sticky for myself, the things that trigger me, the things that light me up, the things that are like, oh my God, this is really scary. Like I'm jealous, or I'm comparing myself, or I'm going to post something that's a little bit more personal and I don't know how I feel about this. And it's just like, we get to move through these things and we get to choose how we move through them. And the better we get at it, the more we practice it, is something that, you were just saying that you've done. It's like we've had years of compounding this practice, or like compound. And so it's like one of those things where you're like, now I've now created this practice to where every time I do show up online, if old triggers or wounds show up, I know how to handle that. And I know how to love on those parts of myself without shaming them or rejecting them further.
Yeah. It's been coming up a lot for me, and in this listening, I love how all this stuff's tied in. We just go on these journeys, but like I've been doing a lot of exploring. It's not even intentional. It's just fucking coming at me about self-love and recognizing how much of my loving myself is actually very conditional on certain things. And if I look back, because tattooing fucking saved my life. And I know a lot of people that feel exactly the same way. Tattooing saved my fucking life because I was lost for a long time. I dealt with a lot of depressions. I spent a lot of time in psychiatric hospitals. I've had 12 treatments of electroconvulsive therapy for depression and anxiety. I've been diagnosed with everything when I was from a very early age. I don't talk about this stuff a lot, but I want to talk about it. I didn't love myself at all. And tattooing gave me something that was like a way, it was not unconditional self-love, but it was like I love myself for like the thing that I'm doing, and I'm creating this thing, and it gave me like a rope to hold on to move towards loving myself more and loving the future that I'm living into and what I'm creating, right? And so I could say it in some ways taught me something about loving myself, but then it becomes so wrapped up in, well, I feel good about myself when I do sick tats, right? And if I go 2 days without doing a dope tattoo, like my love for myself starts to go down. I could feel that happening because my whole identity is so wrapped up in tattooing. I think there's anyone listening to this might identify no matter what you do, right? Whatever your art form is. We were talking in my course just the other day about money shame and just shame in general. We were like talking about it, and this idea of produce. If I'm not producing, well, I'm worthless, And so how much of that love is tied to that? And it was in a fairly recent ayahuasca ceremony in Colombia that I like saw how much of my love for myself is so tied to, it's conditional. It's if I'm making money, if I'm producing, if I'm getting people to like me, all that stuff, right? And then like unconditional, to find out what does it look like and feel like to have unconditional love for myself. I kind of like looked at my daughter, and like the love I have for her is completely unconditional. Nothing doesn't matter. She just shows up, and I'm just like in awe. I just look at her. She's like, you ever look at like you could sit by a fire, you could just watch the fireplace for hours and not get bored. Yeah. Like that's my daughter. I could just look at her, and I'm just fully infatuated. And when she looks at me, and she goes, "Daddy," and she runs this powerful, unconditional love like I've never known. And I saw what that was like, and in that ceremony, it was like, now practice that love on yourself. Oh, and it cracked me open. I felt like my heart felt love that I've never felt before in my life. Like it opened up. Oh, I was crying. My body almost couldn't handle that level of self-love. And so I'm saying this where I want to tie it back is like, whatever we do, tattooing or anything, we wrap our whole identity up in it. And that self-love, while we get that hit of like, I love myself because I did this cool thing. But what if you remove all of that? Practicing loving yourself unconditionally, whether you do a post on social media and everyone fucking hates it, or you do something awesome or something, it's like, remove all of that stuff. That's like power like you've never known, to just be and express in the world unconditionally.
Yes.
So that's what I'm exploring.
I know. And it's like, my heart is like, oh, and the biggest reason too, and I got this from one of my mentors. I am a integrative trauma practitioner. So I've been through, I'm certified in that. And she had mentioned that to me, that it is your inner child that built your business. Your inner child, the child within you, built your business because all you wanted was to feel important and to feel seen and heard. And that's why when we go into tattooing or whatever creative, genre we're in, it's like we just want us to be accepted and like, oh, look at this thing, look what I did so good. Right. And so our inner child is so built into the business, and that's why it's so conditional, because we've been brought up so much in that like industrial age where it's like you sit, you go to school, you make good grades. Once you make good grades, you get a reward. If you make bad grades, you don't get a reward. So it's very much that system mindset in our, in our activities and reality in our life. And what's so beautiful about your experience is that you realized within your daughter how much your own inner child inadvertently is just looking to be validated by you. by you, the human. And so what we get to do is that we, as business owners, especially as entrepreneurs, tattoo artists, you are an entrepreneur. Let's just get this straight. So it's like, especially as an entrepreneur, like let's just big business, big thinking. Okay, entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur. But as an entrepreneur, what you end up doing is you start to create emotional intelligence. You start to understand how to parent the own psyches and inner child and inner teens and young adults within you and your ego and the judger, the critic, and all these things. And it's like we get to actually integrate and collaborate together to create momentum for the future versus over operating from imaginary fights in the past. And so for you, you had this incredible experience that opened you up, and having a daughter just like showed you that like I get to unconditionally love the child within me because maybe I didn't do that before. And then that's what gets to break that cycle of like, okay, yes, it's scary to show up visibly, but do you trust me to do that? So like I literally in meditation, I meditate twice a day, almost 3 times a day, just because like that's where I get my most juicy ideas, and just how I reparent my own body, like how I reparent my inner child. And just the other day, I was talking to my inner child and I was like, do you trust me to do this? Do you trust me to make this risk, to do this thing? And it could be anything. It could be showing up online. It could be investing $75,000 on mentorship, which I just did. And it could be anything. And so it's just like, the moment she says to you, she's like, yes, that's the moment that you've integrated. And that's the next step for your own like initiation and iteration of the next chapter of who you are becoming. You just come closer to yourself the more you heal, closer to the person you're meant to be, rather, because it's not away from you. It's not across the street. It's not all the way a year from now. It's like right inside you. And it's just staying in that level of commitment to seeing and to hearing and listening to your own body and getting to know yourself so well that actually unlocks all of this, the success and limitless and wealth that you desire from the inside out.
Yeah. So maybe you could give me some coaching here, because my goal for 2024 is to, me and my COO were talking about like, we want to be the shit stirrer. That's our goal for 20. Like the shit needs to be stirred. The shit is fucking stagnant and old, and like it needs to be stirred up. And it's scary to stir it up. But like if you just approach life in general, let alone social media or your business, right? If you approach anything from just trying to walk that middle ground where you don't bother anyone too much, but you don't inspire anyone too much, but you just kind of get everyone to like you enough. There's nothing wrong with that, but like I'll just say for myself, like that isn't what my true authentic self-expression wants. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to share with the world, these thoughts, these ideas that are a little bit upsetting or triggering, or they're different. They go against the grain of what we've been taught about money and ourselves. But there's fear. There's always fear that comes up. So if like, how do you coach someone through that fear? Let's talk about social media, particularly like showing up on social media. How would you coach me through that? So
since I am an integrative somatic practitioner, we would go.
And I've worked with some as well, so I'm familiar with that process.
For me, it would be a double thing, because it's like the mindset piece and then the body set piece and the emotional body piece. It's like we have the physical body, we have the mental body, we have the emotional body, and then we have our 4 spiritual bodies, like the energetic bodies outside of us. And so for me, it's like the way that I would really first begin this aspect toward being more disruptive. And I truly believe that we are all being called to be more disruptive, not just, so the fact that you're saying that actually just solidifies exactly what I've been hearing in my own meditations and feeling in my own body, that I'm like, okay, this is that risk that I was talking about. I'm like this is getting riskier. Like I'm going to be, moving outside of the normal, way that And I'm pretty disruptive as it is sometimes, like, but
You are,
even,
yes.
even to get even a little bit more disruptive. And it's funny because I actually
I'm
started
attracted to your disruptiveness. Like that's, I think, what's always attracted me to you and your content is your disruptiveness. So yeah, I agree.
I appreciate you. I love you so much for that. And it's funny because actually there's a few pieces of content you just posted that I was like, this is a little different energy. So it's obvious that like there's a part of you that really desires to be a free spirit. So we have another part to us considered like the free spirit within us. And this is the one that just is like wants to rebel and just wants to go against everything and just wants to go haywire. And this is where you get to basically go inside and maybe talk to that part of you and ask like, is this rebellious in the way that's serving my people? Or is this just rebellious because you're tired of being locked up? And so that's the question I would tell everybody. It's like, what is that inner knowing? And this takes a lot of practice because if you're not well into having a relationship with yourself, if you're not already committed to having like a daily chat with yourself in some capacity, whether that be breath work, meditation, dancing, doesn't matter the modality or the tool. It's just more like, am I committed to this? The more you are, the more you can hear what's actually happening versus the ego. And so it's like with you, I know that you've been on a really big spiritual journey. And so if the powers that be inside your body, the wisdom in your body is saying go, and it's scary and exciting, I always say it's a green light to go. So if you're like, ooh, this is scary and exciting, just go. And this brings a lot of safety. And then the moment you start to feel dysregulation, that's where we go through the somatic route. And it's like, okay, you can literally grab your ankles and start breathing in real deep. Like that'll help you with homeostasis and just bringing you back to like low alpha, high alpha, low beta brainwaves. Getting my brain waves here. And so it's like back to that like place of like placation so that when you do something that's so disruptive and dysregulating to the body, because I think what's this whole culture of like no dysregulation in the body. It's like in order to change, there has to be a little dysregulation, but there's such thing as healthy dysregulation. Like stress can be healthy pressure versus the killer kind of stress, but we have to change.
Right. If you want to build muscle, you have to stress your muscle out.
Exactly.
So if you want to build your mindset, and I love that you said body set, because mindset, body set, two very different systems. You kind of have to stress them out a bit.
Yeah.
And I found that process, like don't just jump right into the deep end and then you get too dysregulated. Like you said, it's not useful, and it can be a tricky process, but you have to do it if you want to grow. So this is for anyone wanting to show up on social media. And I think what's been working for me is I'm built up to this point now where I'm ready to dive into some deeper waters around it. And I can accept a little bit more dysregulation in my body around taking these actions, around expressing myself. I can handle judgment, which, by the way, I had this whole conversation about judgment in my course the other day. It was like mind blowing. But just like a muscle, like when you're lifting weight, right? Lifting weight never gets easier. It's just the weights that you used to lift are easier, but you're just lifting heavier weights now. But you go in, you're always struggling to the point of failure. It's like you're always going there. So I'm always like, well, when's it going to get easier? And it's like, it doesn't, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, I think so. I really find this really interesting. It doesn't necessarily get easier to lift the heavier weight. You just get better at doing it. And so it's like, for me, I've been going to the gym or I'm a runner my whole life, or I meditate hours and hours. Like I love being in meditation. I'd rather be in the quantum than be on earth, but they always say, right, if you meditate an hour, you should just be out in this world. And so it's like, for me, I'm always like looking to create that resiliency. And that's why I think that like, it's actually really why I believe about long-term mentorship. Like I really believe that it's like, you have that therapist or you have that business mentor, you have the finance mentor, it's like, it's just like, that's why it's like, you start to notice, like, do you ever notice, like, with your courses, like, you're like, it's just not long enough. It's just not long enough. You almost feel like people need to be in there longer.
I'll have people that do my course, they'll get 1 month in and they'll say, Ryan, I'm already upset about the fact that it's going to end.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
And we have honestly been not as great about like, well, how do we support people afterwards? And we're right now because we've worked with almost 300 people in just the past year.
Exactly.
So we're like, okay, we need to figure out how do we continue to support people in a way that provides value, works for them, and continues that growth, because, you know, in many ways, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I've experienced that. It's so easy to go back to those old patterns that do not serve us.
Right.
And so once you start whatever your next awakening, expansion journey, having something to help continue to sustain that, I think, is 100% essential.
Absolutely. And so it's like that, it's like creating that like muscle of longevity, because sometimes we, you know, discipline, devotion, commitment, grit, that's a skill. Like these are skills that we can learn. But if we're not being held accountable for these skills to learn them, and if our like deepest intrinsic why, like the reasons why we're doing something isn't strong enough, we will let it go. And then we'll wonder, and we'll always be like, man, I really miss that part of me. And then continuously shame our present self because of the fact that we're like, we used to be good at this and now we're not. I used to not watch Netflix, but it this or that or whatever. I used to practice my tattooing, whatever it might be. And so it's just like all of these things. That's why I think it's like community, longevity, long-term expansion. This is entrepreneur thinking. It's not, you know, pirate tattooer thinking, as you say, where it's like, we're a pirate tattooer. I look at pirate tattoo thinking it's like short-term, the day-to-day, the next dollar. What, you know, it's like this kind of thinking where it's like, how do we expand our time horizons and lengthen our time horizons on our lives and our businesses and the way that we operate? It's like, I'm not committed to getting to a goal. I'm committed to a skill set I'm learning, you know? And so that's like, this is the skill you get to learn. This resiliency is the skill. You know, like for me, meditation is everything to me. And if it wasn't for that, it saved my entire life. And so it's like, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life or my business. And that's why I'm like, for me, it's like in my programs, it's all about spiritual and mental health is your catalyst to your success in wealth and business. Because it's like, if you have this piece, if you have this resiliency piece, then you are going to be able to walk yourself through anything that happens, because the inevitable ebbs and flows in business are just going to happen. It's a guarantee. So it's like showing up online. That's being scared to show up online is a guarantee. It is not doesn't go away. It's like, I'm still fucking scared. Like I'm fucking scared shitless half the time. I just know how to walk myself through it because I've gathered the tools and all the things, and I have accountability for it too. I have my spiritual counselor, my mentors, you know, I have my own community where they're like holding me accountable to rise to the leader that I desire to be. And that's like what's so fun about being an entrepreneur and being a tattoo artist, is that you are really leading a community because you've built this business around who you are and what you do. And it's like, wow, people really subscribe to this. And I want to show up for them in a way that empowers them, you know, because that's how really you're going to get people to sign up for your wait list, get in your chair faster, is that you're empowering them to feel empowered to get tattooed. Like they're like, oh, I believe in this message that tattoos are transformative and they're life changing. But if you can't show up in that empowered way, they can't transform in an empowered way to come and get tattooed by you. So it's like, there is this like circle breaking in this thing, in this piece where people are like, well, I want to show up, but I also I'm so afraid to show up because who am I showing up for? And we've had this conversation before. It's like, oh, I'm actually showing up for the other artists and my peers in my shop and all these things. And I don't realize that like I'm actually showing up in fear of them, or hoping that they'll just like me, or hoping that they'll just validate my work. It's like, and that's where it's like,
you and I have probably talked to 1,000+ artists at this point about this, and they all identify with that. They all are like, yep, that's it. That's why I'm afraid to show up. Is like, I'm not afraid of what my clients are going to say or think. I'm afraid of what other artists are going to say or think. And there's this great quote. You know the guy, Dan Sullivan? He's a very famous coach. Dan Sullivan. He says he was in the military and he had a general, tell him, fear is pissing your pants. Courage is pissing your pants and doing it anyway.
Wait,
and so that's it. It's like you're afraid of showing up on social media. So you're either going to piss your pants or you're going to piss your pants and do it anyway. But either way, you're going to piss your pants. You're afraid, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you wait till you're not afraid to do it, well, don't hold your breath.
I literally just posted about this yesterday. I was like, let's normalize that we're doing things scared. Like, why don't we just normalize that it's scary? Like, normalize feeling all your feelings, because the moment that we do, then we don't create a wound. We don't create a shadow in our bodies that like tells us that, oh, this is bad or this is good. It's like fear is just fear. It's you are the one who puts the story on what fear is supposed to be like or feel like or whatever. And so it's like, for me, like fear is the same chemical release in the brain that excitement is. So if I'm like scared, excited, I'm like, okay, that means it's a green light to go. It just means that like I'm about to do a really big shift in my body. And this means I'm going to up level, and I'm committed to up levelment. I'm committed to growth. That's a value of mine. So I'm just like, if I'm committed to that thing, then I don't care what it is in the material world that I have to do. I'm so in tuned with that part of it that I'm just like, I need that more. I need the growth more than I need the fear. And I think the fear part gets to be. I think
the fear of not growing is bigger than my fear of staying stuck.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If my fear of growing is bigger than my fear of staying stuck, then I'm just going to stay stuck.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing that's less scary. But yeah, like staying stuck in those ways, those patterns that don't serve me. And ultimately, like I know, like in my soul, I feel this little ember of like, you're capable of so much more. You're capable of building a $100 million company. You're capable of transforming the world's relationship with money. There's this little ember that sees that that's possible. You're capable of transforming the landscape of business for artists all around the world. I know I'm capable of that, but fucking hell, just even saying that out loud on this microphone fucking scares me.
To claim it though, but like the fact is that to claim it is utilizing like the throat chakra. It's like utilizing your truth. And the reason why it feels so good, it's because it's the truth within your body. But the part that scares us is the human part. It's the very human part. And if we could just, oh my gosh, I love you, human, and you're coming along for the ride because my fucking desires outweigh the fear. And when you can hook on to a desire that outweighs your fear, you are limitless. And that is like, yeah. And that's why I know I already see it for you. We had this conversation in private the other day. You're like, I'm ready for like a 10 million. The fact that you're like owning 100 million all of a sudden in like less than like 15 days since we spoke, I was like, damn bitch, I'm on board with this shit. Fuck yeah. Cause I was like, I remember like, it was like even like a squeakiness. It was like, yeah. And I'm thinking I'm moving towards like the, upper. I was like, 10 million, baby, let's call that. And you're like, 100 million. I'm a whole shit. Regulate me. I'm on for this ride. I'm going crazy. Like, I'm so
it's wild how quantum leaps work,
It's literally that. It's like 10xing. And that's why like in Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy's book and like 10x is easier than 2x. It's because 2x is linear. It's doing more to get more, where 10x is an identity shift. So you shifted your identity, which is a quantum leap. And people don't understand quantum leaps because they only see things in the material, where you've decided to surpass the material and understand quantum physics and the material world and like just like understanding like how we actually get to move in everything's energy. I'm sure you teach us a lot, money's energy. And so it's like this idea where we actually get to, I'm not manifesting, I'm being manifested. And so you're just like, I'm being the identity of being manifested. So 100 million, 1 billion, changing the world. Fuck yeah, I believe that you're going to do it. I know. I'm just going to be like eating my popcorn, being like, this is going to be fun. I'm going to watch this. It's going to be so cool. And it's like, it gets to be that way because we've chosen that path. And so when we choose that, you've seen it, you felt it. And now it's just like, I got no timeline. And that's another big problem is that like, we do the brave thing. And then all of a sudden we have an expectation that it should do this other thing. But really, it's like, if we can stretch that outcome, stretch the part of it where it's like, this gets to be a practice. I'm not expecting anything, but I have expectancy. So there's a difference. It's like, I don't have an expectation. I don't have an expectation that this is the way it's to be, and and I control the outcome. I have an expectancy that it's going to show up in any which way that it shows up, whenever it decides to show up. But as long as I'm committed to being this person that always desires growth, it'll come to me. It's inevitable.
Yeah. I always try to recognize my expectations. So so many things, man, I love talking to you, Reese. Just like every time. Oh, my camera is always freezing here. There we go. I know. We got to do this more often, because we're probably getting close to time, but I don't remember what I was going to say now. I love you. I do. I just love these conversations. These are the types of conversations I want to be having. Oh, this is what I was going to say. You mentioned, making a big investment in mentorship. I've been working with a coach that I worked with a while ago, and he started doing some other kind of coaching, like performance coaching and stuff like that. He was a marketing and sales coach that I worked with. Now he's doing performance coaching. And I think he charges like $1,700 an hour, something like that. It's the most expensive, definitely one of the more expensive coaches I've worked with. And I definitely attribute part of this quantum shift to working with him. The work that we're doing is amazing, and we're diving into lots of like relationship with time, and just in how I tackled my relationship with money. I'm like tackling my whole concept and relationship with time. Something that I realized, and I was watching something also on social media about this, that this guy was saying he couldn't imagine charging someone $2,000 for a project, because he didn't have just $2,000 sitting around. He couldn't imagine himself just dropping $2,000 on X said thing, right? So if he couldn't imagine doing it himself, he couldn't imagine someone else doing it. So he couldn't sell that, right? And then he started growing his business, and all of a sudden it was $10K, and then it was $50K. And he started to realize that like the limiting factor wasn't the quality, obviously the quality of work has to be exceptional, but the real limiting factor was he himself couldn't believe that someone would pay XYZ, because he himself wouldn't pay for that. And I found that as we kind of level up the amount that we are comfortable investing in ourselves, when you invest in yourself, when you invest in the stock market, you are betting that the stock is going to be valued more in the future than it is valued right now. That's what you're doing essentially when you invest. When you invest in yourself, you are betting that I am going to be more valuable in the future than I am now. And so you're taking that bet. And so when you make bigger, comfortable bets in that, it just becomes more natural and easier for you to charge more money. And so I think one of the things that stops people from getting that price out of their throat. I remember the first time I charged $1,000 for a tattoo. It was like $1,000. Because I didn't believe that I would pay $1,000 to get tattooed until I did. And then I've paid more than that. And same thing for coaching. It's like, anyway, just this kind of idea that it really does live in this concept in here to get it out there in the world. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Definitely stop. I talked to a guy yesterday, just signed up for my course. And he hasn't raised his prices in 10 years. And I was like, dude, when are you raising your prices? He's like, I know, but and I was like, okay, had you raised your prices $50 an hour 5 years ago, let's just say hypothetically, right? How many hours a week are you tattooing? Okay, we did the math, conservatively, totally, another $125,000 that he could have had right now had he raised his prices by $50 5 years ago. He hadn't raised his prices in 10 years. I said, okay, look, dude, I have a deal for you, okay? For the next 5 years, you don't have to raise your prices, all right? You could just stay comfortable where you're at, doing exactly what you're doing, and all you have to do is pay me $125,000. Deal?
I love that idea.
Yeah? You want to shake on it? He's like, nah, dude, that's a horrible deal. I was like, you took that deal 5 years ago. He's like, oh, fuck.
It's so interesting because, there is this level of understanding. It's like a qualitative shift in your body when you're like, okay, I am going to say what it is that I'm worth. It's like, would I invest in me? Would I invest in me like $75,000? I'm like, fuck yeah. $75,000. It was like no brainer, no problem. Putting that money down it's like, it's just money. That's going to circulate back to me. I'm going to learn so much. I will 10x that in qualitative identity shifts that will make me that 10 times. And so it's not, for me, it's
in 1 year. In one year. It's not
and that's like that creative shift in your mind. And I was having this conversation with one of my inner circle artists, scale mastermind artists, where she's like, I haven't raised my prices in like 12 years. And I was just like, well, what is the level of work that you would like to produce? So it's like, how much do you want to charge? So we did that like Harry Scary, and we kind of worked our way backwards on it. And she's like, I want to charge this much for this session, doing it this way. We even tiered her tattoo practices from like, you know, like basic economy and first class, or like economy, business and first class. So it's like, we did this tiered work so that she can actually create, because she's a healer. She does Reiki as well with the tattooing. So we did this tiered work. She opened up her books yesterday, raised all of her prices, had 400 emails come through. And I was asking her, I was like, well, okay, what do you think the shift was? And she was like, well, I decided to be the artist that created the level of artwork that made this much money. So she went to a high price. We went to like the price that kind of was Harry Scary. It's like nervous, exciting. It's like, I don't know if I want to say this out loud, but we went to that, and she had to rise to the occasion in her own mind. And it wasn't that her artwork like needed to rise. It was like her mindset needed to rise, and then her artwork rose, and then everything else rose. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, after making this whole exciting deal and her opening up her books for the first time after, it was like she was floored by the responses and how many people actually went for that higher tier one, like the higher tier, like the one that cost like $4,000 for the day of the Reiki and the tattooing and the thing. And it was just like, she's like, I had to really like attune my body energetically and calibrate around that number so that I could understand that I am worth it, and I can create a level of service that I know that will be worth it as well. So it's like, we set the price, and then we actually rise to the occasion over being like, let's do it incrementally, because it's like, this is what I think they'll pay. And it's like, no, instead, how about I change myself from the inside out, change my identity around what money, you know, like what I'm worth, and rise to the occasion versus just like, let's just do little by little. Over 1 year, I charged $25 more. Another year, and I was that artist. I was like, maybe $20 more this year, maybe $20 more this year. And it was like, you know, and it was so incremental, and it was slow, but it was like, okay, this is fine. But then I remember all the times where I, you know, like pirate money, it was like, you know, I didn't know how to invest. I didn't know how to save. So I couldn't take vacations because I was waiting to the next dollar every time. And it was just like all of these things. And I was like, how can I?
And whatever she invested in you to have that breakthrough is like immediately 10x the investment.
Thank you. But yes.
And that's been my experience.
Yeah, same. This is my like superpower. I'm like, I want to teach people how to slay their own shame. I want them to integrate. I want normalizing all the fear and all the doubt, because that is where your true purpose lies. And it also is where you're like, big money. You want money? Go inward. You want success? Go inward. It's like every time I go inward, I 10x everything outside of me. I cannot stress it enough. So I love that this is like your journey, and that fact that it's like you're starting to notice that, and it's hard because your like brain just feels like it's going to explode. You're like, there's no way I'm that limitless. There's no way. I cannot fathom how limitless I am. You know, but we get to that point, and I just like that, like, honestly, I know that we're probably at time, but like on an end note, I'm just so fucking stoked for you and everybody that gets to be in your space and gets to be in your energy, because that's the essence, that's the energy that transforms millions, billions of people around the world. So we need more people that are willing to unearth all that yucky gunk and stuff that's, you know, limiting their connection to themselves, so that they can really shine in their authenticity, in their purpose, and really do some really amazing things on this planet. Because I truly believe that money in the hands of good people do amazing things. And so the more that we can go in there and we shine our light, the more it comes back to us. That's the law of reciprocity. So it's like, Keep doing you, Rye. I fucking love you. I love being here with you and your energy and all the good stuff.
You too, Reese. And everyone, you heard Reese, like the world needs more people doing this stuff. So this isn't a Ryan and a Reese thing. We all need you. And if you're hearing this, you know that I'm talking directly to you. And Reese is talking directly to you. Like, we all need you. The world, there's too many people need this kind of help. So if you feel called to do this, reach out to either one of us. We would love to support you in that. I'm super excited for some of the things that you invited me to collaborate with you on coming up. I know you're going to be announcing some things soon, whatever the future holds for both of our businesses. It is super exciting, and I'm honored to share any platform with you, Reese. Really. Thank you.
I love you so much, Ryan. I'm so glad that you and I our spirits have aligned, and I just love that being here in your space and energy and stuff. So thank you for having me here. I've been dying to come on your podcast. I was like, is he going to ask me?
Yeah, I know.
And then when you asked me the other day, I was all, yes.
So cool. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I'll drop links for everything. I mean, people will definitely seek you out, and I hope they do. We'll talk soon. I'll see you next week.
All right. Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I just want to prompt that if you got some value out of this conversation, please go and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you saw this podcast. It really helps me out, and it really helps other people to find this podcast. I want more people to have these types of conversations around money so that we can all be more free and at ease and abundant and able to create the lives that we really want to live. So please share this and rate and review. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.